All right, boys and girls, Semphis here. We are back with the news. I'm going to be doing these weekly. Just as a disclaimer, nothing I'm about to say is based in any sort of insider information. It's just my speculation, my opinion. It's for fun, so don't get offended. This isn't a super serious video, but I'm going to try to give you guys my opinions from playing on different rosters with different players, coaches, management, and maybe give you guys some of what could potentially be happening behind the scenes, just kind of guessing, speculating. So let's get into it. As you guys have probably seen, Nitro's making a comeback from Valorant. Surprise, surprise. They all come crawling back, don't they? So, apparently, according to this, Dust2 says, Liquid's Captain Nitro will not be joining M80's Counter-Strike squad after failing to reach an agreement about a transition from the organization's Valorant squad. Now, to me, I'm curious as if this was actually a failure to transfer him to the CS team based on, salary or some sort of negotiations. I think it's more likely that the CS team just didn't want to play with him. They're replacing Mulbs potentially if he gets bought out by G2. So if that happens, I feel like they need a much bigger firepower upgrade. They're not looking for a player like Nitro, so that could potentially play into it. Oftentimes, players won't always want to take a gamble on a more experienced player that they feel is maybe past his prime, coming back from a different game on a long break. So I could also see that factoring into it. But in saying that, I think Nitro's a good player and he could add value to a team. But when you are replacing a player like Mulbs potentially, it's a big role to fill, right? So I can see the hesitation right there. So if I was to say where I think Nitro should go, I think a good place for him would be NRG. He's got players that he's familiar with, Breeze, Automatic, OC, stuff like that. I think he'd be a good fit in there, and nothing against Walco, but I just think Nitro is a better caller. I don't think that's a crazy statement to make. So yeah, that's what I think Nitro should do, and I think Energy would probably benefit from it, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Don't know too much about Rare Atom, so I'm just gonna skip this one. I'm not big into watching all the tier 2 Chinese games, Asian games. I mostly watch European and North Americans. Yes. So this was interesting to me. Stamina departs M80's analyst role. It says he basically said, I was on trial contract at M80 and wanted to extend as a full-time assistant coach manager, after which unfortunately did not happen. They offered me to stay in the current role, but doing that and working a 9 to 5 is really tough, and I was never looking to stop playing entirely in the first place. Now that I can play, I'm back. So I played with Bobby for a little bit. He's a really nice guy. He's very, very hardworking, very smart. We had some issues that I'm not going to go into, but I still like him. I hope the best for him. I think that this is a fair decision by him. Just if you're on a contract that's maybe part-time and you need to make more money, you might just be if this isn't going anywhere, I'd rather just, start a new team, look elsewhere. But I do wonder why M80 wouldn't put him as a assistant coach or move him up, because I feel like he is pretty good at what he does. But again, I'm not part of the organization. I haven't seen exactly what's been going on behind the scenes. I'm not sure how much of a prep work team M80 is. Maybe they just don't use it enough to justify paying him. But I do think if Bobby comes back, Stamina is Bobby, I think he should join a team where everyone kind of respects him and he's the leader. I think that's the best bet for him. Just when you join a team, for example, Stamina joining G2, terrible idea. I'd rather him join a team it's hard to think on the fly, but a team where they're a little bit less experienced and more looking up to someone to guide them. I think he needs a team of yes men to just kind of listen and do what he says, because he's smart, he has a good game plan, but I feel like he's maybe not the best at working with people that are going to be pushing him a lot. If you're playing with someone like Nico and he doesn't want to do something, I feel like he's just not going to do it. And certain callers work better in different systems, and I don't think that's a bad thing, right? You look at Cadian, right? He had a lot of success with Heroic, then he joins Liquid, not so much success. I think sometimes people think, oh, just because he's a good caller or a good player, they can fit anywhere. I think you do need to be honest with yourself and determine like where should I go, what is the logically what is the best for both parties, right? For you as a player and the team, right? Like you shouldn't try to force things that aren't maybe like for example, if you're a really aggressive caller, you probably shouldn't join Promistralis that are playing super like they're playing very default, very like methodical, very passive on CT. Like they're probably not going to want to be rushing all the time, right? Like maybe you want to join a different team, right? So just an example. Obviously some players are more adaptable than others, but again, that's just my opinion. So Zeus departs Liquid. I mean, Liquid just seems to like be a failure all in all, right? Like they didn't qualify for the major. They made some decent runs actually, but I feel like it was mostly like Twist and Naf kind of carrying them. I think Yekindar kind of like underperformed. Katie and Skulls were just kind of like not really up to par. I like I said before, I think Katie needs to be on a team where kind of like I was saying with Stamina with players that are just going to buy into the system and just listen, and really commit to it and believe in it. Because I do think like a plan is better than no plan, and a decent plan is better. A decent plan that everyone buys into is better than a great plan that like two players don't really believe in, right? And that might sound silly, but like you can think about in Counter-Strike, there's so many situations where like making a decent decision is better than like taking too long to make a great decision. And I think that's kind of like what happens with Cadian is the players might not fully buy into it, and when you're playing a playstyle like he likes to call, which is very like anti-strat heavy, very stack heavy on CT, a lot of gambles, but like they're not just gambles where he's just guessing, it's based off of watching demos, it's based off timings in the game, there's certain places where like, for example, on Vertigo, if you peek down the A ramp at a minute and there's no one down there's no one at the bottom of the A ramp on Vertigo, you can leave for probably like 30 seconds. Like what are the chances that like the millisecond you leave, like 5 guys are charging up the A site? Like even if they start taking it, you have time to get back, right? So I feel like every map has these timings, and I felt like the old Heroic was very good at exploiting those timings, being like, okay, no one's here at this time, we can leave, rotate over here, we'll leave this one guy with a smoke. At like 1 minute he'll smoke. We have 15 seconds to kind of like play around here, and then we'll move back and make that site heavy. So they were very good at stuff like that. So I actually really liked that playstyle. But again, I think those playstyles work better when you have a bunch of yes men on your team and you don't have like divas and stars. I'm not saying that the people on Liquid were like that, but I'm just saying like you have Naf and Twist, who aren't the most aggressive players. Maybe they didn't fully buy into that. I'm not sure. That's just a guess. But yeah, either way, they both played really well, and they were basically the pillars of Liquid that whole time. Will Nitro return to Liquid? I don't think so. I mean, what do you guys think? I don't think Nitro's returning to Liquid, personally. I think they'll have Twist call before that happens, even though like this is maybe not part of the actual news, but I saw an article or a tweet saying that Twist was thinking about potentially calling, which I think is a terrible idea. Not that I don't think that he's smart or that he can do it. I just think he's kind of a passive guy in general, and he's super good at what he does. Like, like Russell, if you're watching this video, which you aren't, you're super good at what you do. You're super valuable, playing those passive spots on CT that people don't primarily like and still top fragging on them. T-side, super methodical, good at clutching. You don't make many mistakes. I think calling is kind of like a disservice to yourself. And as someone that has tried to fill roles on a lot of my teams, becoming an opper, becoming a caller, entry fragger, second in, I think being a jack of all trades, master of none is a terrible idea in CS. It's much better to specialize and stay that way until maybe you feel like maybe your skill is declining. So like, right now I feel like Twist's skill is still very high. But like, let's say in a year or two, he feels like, he's not performing as well. He can't keep up with the donks of the world. Then I would potentially agree with that, like, role shift to IGL to kind of, like, secure a position in a team for a longer time. But, again, right now, I just personally would like to not see that. But, again, I just think he's really good, and I think it was just a waste of his talent. But, again, maybe he'll prove me wrong. So Imperial replaced Henny with Try. Now, I've watched Try. He's pretty good, honestly. Let's look at his stats right now. Stats versus Henny, just comparison. So last 3, he does got really no stats. We'll look, complete is kind of like unreliable. But .76, Um, 1.19 rating. So obviously this guy's got skill. He's very talented. I think like tries more consistent than Henny, but Henny's high level is really high. Like when Henny's performing really well, you're probably making it far in a tournament. But I do think he's kind of a high sense opper. He's kind of passive. Maybe he's not really doing as well in the CS2 meta. It's hard to say. I haven't watched a ton of Henny, but this move is just kind of like we'll see how it goes. But I mean, like Try is an upgrade over Henny, but I still think Henny's a really good player. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see. Henny's definitely a unique opper, but I definitely think another Brazilian team could definitely like pick this guy up, and it would be a great addition to their team. Don't care about this. Brazilian Football Club reopens CS division. Icy played test with Cloud9 without MCall's permission. This is weird to me. Like, are you just dodging your practice? So for those who don't know, like Icy is the potential pickup for Cloud9. He's on MCal. And like to me, it's like, did he dodge practice and like not tell them and went on a different Steam account and played scrims with them? That's kind of weird. But like, if you have the chance, to potentially play on Cloud9, I kind of get it. Especially being a younger guy, you're gonna maybe take that risk. But it's definitely better to do things above board, like the proper channels, right? Like. You don't want to burn bridges in esports and have everyone hate you, have orgs mad at you, have a bad reputation for breaking contracts. You can do it, but you better be really good. Like you better be very skilled, because if you're not very skilled, you're probably not going to get more chances. From my experience, see, if you're donk or simple, people are going to turn a blind eye to it for the majority of the time. But yeah, so that's just my opinion. See if there's any other news here. I think that's the main things I saw recently. Oh yeah, Guardian returns as coach. That's interesting to me. I mean, Guardian's always been one of my players I looked up to when I was becoming an opera. I watched a lot of demos of him. Super nice guy. I've talked to him at events and a little bit on Steam and stuff. But yeah, I think it's interesting. Obviously someone that's second at a major. Tons of tournament wins, making it far. It would be interesting to see what impact he can have on a team like this. I'm not exactly sure who's on this roster. But again, I guess we'll just have to see in the future how it's going. I just wanted to comment on this. So Torzi basically said on Frozen's departure, it opened up a bigger space for the rest of the players. And this is something that I kind of I've seen happen a lot on the different teams. Is like when you have one player that's taking up a lot of resources and he's very skilled, you want to do that, right? You want to make your Nico, your simple, your Donk, your focal point of the team. But a lot of times what that does is it kind of nerfs other players, because if they're getting every spot they want on T, every spot they want on CT, they're always being accommodated with drops. They're always being kind of like getting preferential treatment. I feel like it doesn't always cause resentment from other players, because if you're always performing, people usually will be like, all right, it's fine. If you have Simple on your team, he's dropping 30 every game, and you got to drop him some ops. I mean, I won't be mad. But I think like it is true though. Like when that player leaves the team, you kind of realize, oh man, like we have so much more freedom to kind of like play spots we want more. We can do different strats, because like sometimes players, like I don't want to call anyone out specifically, but like some players don't like doing certain things and they'll just say no, or they're not comfortable doing it. And if they're a star player, you can't really do that. Like for example, I'm not saying he does this, but like say Simple has an op and you call an inner rush on Nuke. It's probably not the best call, right? Because you have the best opera on your team in the world, and it's probably better to have him go pick ramp, maybe pick door, maybe go outside for a pick, then come back, maybe do an inner execute where you kind of set him up, then a rush. When you rush with off, it's a bad idea. So I'm just saying it might like nerf some of those things. Like the caller might actually not call the way that he would love to call. So there's a lot of I think this is a pretty like true statement, and I just kind of wanted to give my opinion on that, because I do think that is something that people don't take into account when they pick up players, or players leave the team. Like sometimes a better, like your best player can leave, but your team actually gets better. So it's really interesting how that goes. And there was one more thing I wanted to comment on. Yeah, right down here. This is the last thing, and then we'll go. So, oh yeah, really quick. Chet targets Counter-Strike return. That's what I'm saying. They all come back. These Valorant dweebs. All right. I'm just kidding. I like all the players. I'm just trolling. But so James says there's an option where Electronic becomes the captain. Now, like, to me, this is what I think about this. I think that Electronic joined their team. James has a certain system. Electronic has been teaching them some stuff from Navi that he's got from, like, you know, that whole stint that he's done there, all the experience winning majors, winning tournaments, playing with Simple, and then having Blade as a coach. He probably has a much different perspective of the game than James, and maybe James is feeling like, oh, like, actually this guy might be smarter than me, maybe he should call. But I think it's a mistake. I personally think, like, just have Electronic be the second caller, let him implement some strats and setups, maybe tweak your game plan a little bit, be a little bit more, I don't want to say random, but like more unpredictable, because I feel like everyone kind of understands how VP plays at this point, and use that to your advantage. But I really don't want to see Electronic calling again. I think that would be silly. Although I will say that when it comes to Virtus Pro, I think the Fame and Flit are actually very, very good riflers, so it's not like you need Electronic to be the star rifler of this team, but it's just like when you have these players, it's just like, I just like rather them not do that. I just like, I don't know, I don't think Electronic calling in the past has really been like groundbreaking, and I feel like James has more experience doing it, but like maybe he just needs a little bit of adaptation, and Electronic can help with that. And I believe they are looking for a new coach as well. I could be wrong on that. It says Zoma there, but yeah, anyways, I probably might be wrong on that. I just, my brain, it's not that good. It's old now. It's an old brain. That's why I'm doing the news now. I'm not playing, you know? Anyways, hope you guys enjoy this video. These are my random thoughts. I'll try to go over the news every week or so, and if, you know, some weeks are going to be slower, some are going to be more exciting, but we got a lot of roster changes incoming in the next couple days and couple weeks, in my opinion. This is player break, and everyone's looking to make a change, so I'm very excited because I think this next half of the year or so is going to get really crazy. We're going to have Donk, Zaiwu, maybe Shiro, and a couple other players kind of fighting for that first place. Monacy, obviously. I think it's basically between like Monacy and Donk in my mind. But Zaiwu, you know, it's Zaiwu. Like, if he just has a good second half of the year, I think he can take it too. Those three are definitely up there. I think Shiro would have a harder time getting it, but I have a soft spot for him. I think he's a very good player. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Anyways, peace, boys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Peace.